Well-respected NBA insiders Adrian Wojnarowski and Shams Charania started the day breaking the news that the Los Angeles Lakers and the Oklahoma City Thunder are well on course to complete a deal that would send Dennis Schroeder to the Lakers in exchange for what reportedly would be a deal including Danny Green and the Lakers' 28th overall pick. As of right now, there's no mention as to whether Kyle Kuzma would be included in the deal, and if it turns out that he's not, the Lakers would have walked away with a steal of a deal to start their highly anticipated 2020 free agency. It's no secret the Laker fanbase has been hoping the front office would find a deal to land this year's runner-up for Sixth Man of the Year, Dennis Schroeder, as he was at the top of the list of potential third stars the Lakers could trade for this offseason. On paper, Schroeder is exactly what the Lakers were looking for in a third star caliber talent, who is able to alleviate LeBron James' ball handling responsibilities and serve as another elite playmaker to facilitate for Anthony Davis, along with elevate the performance of the supporting cast. For those who aren't familiar with Schroeder's work, he's a 26-year-old true point guard entering the heart of his prime, and while playing third fiddle for the Oklahoma City Thunder behind Chris Paul and Shai Gilgeous-Alexander this past season, Schroeder was still able to put up 19 points, 4 rebounds, and 4 assists, to go along with a greatly improved 40% shooting from beyond the arc. His skill set allows for him to generate offense from anywhere on the court, and his natural point guard instincts are always on the lookout for the open man. A few years ago with the Atlanta Hawks, you could have questioned whether Dennis Schroeder would be able to serve as an off-ball shooter to LeBron James and Anthony Davis, but that's certainly no longer the case, being that he has addressed those concerns in this past season with the Thunder. You would think that with Schroeder almost guaranteed to being promoted in the starting lineup, and playing well beyond the 30-minute per game mark that he has hovered throughout his career, while serving as a secondary playmaker behind LeBron James who will be coasting throughout the regular season, Schroeder should be anticipated to have a career year, being paired alongside some of the best talents he's been with throughout his entire career. It wouldn't even be too far-fetched to expect him to crack the 20-point per game mark, along with 7 assists per game, depending on just how much LeBron trusts him to run the show during the regular season. I know some Laker fans might be underwhelmed being that Dennis Schroeder isn't a big name like DeMar DeRozan, but the thing is that this team has shown they're just fine without a legitimate third all-star. What they really need is just a third consistent contributor behind LeBron James and Anthony Davis, who is able to contribute in a multitude of ways, and Dennis Schroeder does exactly that. Now heading to the 2021 postseason, LeBron will once again be well rested, being that he no longer needs to lead the team in assists every night just to initiate the flow of the offense. But before I get ahead of myself, the arrival of Dennis Schroeder is expected to have domino effects on the rest of the roster. It was recently reported that point guard Avery Bradley was on the fence of opting out of his player option, and now it'd be fair to say that he indeed will be opting out. Bradley is well recognized as one of the best perimeter defenders in the league, and I highly doubt that he'd opt into his bargain contract after losing his job just to play behind Dennis Schroeder, who will be playing heavy minutes at the point guard position. Which brings me to my next point, that being the impending free agency decision of Rajon Rondo. Rondo's a pure point guard, and just like Dennis Schroeder, he can't play any other position due to his lack of size. So what does that mean for Rondo this offseason, who is arguably the third best player for the Lakers championship run, and is expected to be highly pursued by other teams, such as the Los Angeles Clippers? It'll definitely hurt Laker fans to see him go, but there's no way to deny that the Lakers now have a very limited role to offer Rondo should he return. But back to Dennis Schroeder's fit on the Los Angeles Lakers, the offense for Frank Vogel is about to get a lot more complex and scary for other teams. LeBron has modified his game as a capable off-ball three-point shooter, and so has Dennis Schroeder. So for a large majority of games, teams will have to stay on top of two dynamic playmakers who can penetrate to finish around the basket, kick out to find an open man, run the pick and roll with Anthony Davis, serve as an off-ball floor spacer, or continue to move the ball to really scramble up the defense. You can see on Schroeder's resume that he's capable of elevating the performance of whoever's on the floor with him, and he'll continue to do the same wearing purple and gold. But there is one move I'd really like to see happen now that Dennis Schroeder is with the Los Angeles Lakers. That being the Lakers going out to sign Schroeder's pick and roll buddy off the bench from the Oklahoma City Thunder, free agent center Nerlens Noel. I've already talked about how much of a nightmare defensive front court Anthony Davis and Nerlens Noel would form, being two near 7-footers who are agile enough to guard all 5 positions, and compromise on nothing defensively when teams decide to go small. Should Nerlens Noel actually be signed to complete a starting lineup that would at least include Dennis Schroeder, a shooter, LeBron James, Anthony Davis, and Nerlens Noel, this would mark for not only one of the fastest teams in the league, but one with the most defensive versatility, rim protection, and second chance opportunities. The only knock on Dennis Schroeder's game would be his lack of size. He stands at 6'1" and only 172 pounds, so teams will more than likely look to isolate him in mismatch situations, which is why it's so important that the Lakers are able to fortify their interior defense. Despite his slender frame though, Schroeder is a very willing defender, who keeps his hands active to come away with steals and lead the fast break. That was the Lakers' bread and butter this past season, with how Frank Vogel initiated offense by preaching elite defense leading to easy transition buckets. Schroeder would fall right into that category, and fans should be expecting the Lakers to play a much faster pace next season, with one of the quickest point guards in the league. Off the top of my head, Schroeder would mark the second best point guard that LeBron has played with behind Kyrie Irving, and it'll definitely be nice to see another elite playmaker setting up LeBron James for lobs to the basket, timely cuts to the basket, and open shots from beyond the arc. Same goes for Anthony Davis, as it seemed like when LeBron was taken out of the game, it was only Rajon Rondo who was able to connect with the big man, but even with that, regular season Rondo was a different player who was super passive on offense, and allowed for defenders to sag off him in order to double team Anthony Davis in the paint, ultimately making life a little harder for everyone else on the court. But that wouldn't be the case at all with Dennis Schroeder running the floor, being that opponents will be forced to play honest defense on him, wherever he is on the court, or else he could go out to score 20 plus points on any given night. The only thing left for the Lakers to do, now that they're on their way to finally land their third star to pair alongside Anthony Davis and LeBron James, is to do their due diligence on the open market, and look for as many sizable wings who could defend and shoot well from beyond the arc. It's a tall task, considering every team in the NBA will be having their eyes out for that skill set, but the Lakers definitely have the advantage as the defending champs. Hopefully, Schroeder does recognize this is an opportunity of a lifetime, despite earlier comments that he wouldn't be interested in joining the Lakers or Clippers, and prefers to stay in Oklahoma City. He's on a one-year expiring deal, where players want to play their best to land a large contract, but he shouldn't lose sight at the bigger goal at hand. It's too early to determine if Dennis Schroeder is a long-term fit, but if that turns out to be the case, the Lakers do have the cap flexibility next offseason to make it happen. My question is now what happens to Kyle Kuzma, in the event that he's not included as part of this deal. Are the Lakers really going to give him a second chance to be that scoring punch off the bench? The floor spacing that Dennis Schroeder provides as a playmaker will definitely help Kyle Kuzma's case, but then again, Kuzma's reportedly expecting a large payday the following offseason. The other option is that Kyle Kuzma is included in a second deal to bring in yet another high-quality role player, which would even further solidify the Lakers as championship favorites heading into next season. The only problem is that the Lakers, having shipped out Danny Green, will need salaries to match up with Kuzma's cheap contract in order to bring back a high-quality role player. Players with player options will be well aware of that, and will hesitate at the idea of opting into cheap contracts, just to be shipped to a place not of their choosing. So let me know down in comments below, being that it's reported, the Lakers have a deal of Danny Green and a 28th overall pick in place of Dennis Schroeder, which is expected to be finalized tomorrow. Who do you think won this deal? And what do you think happens to Kyle Kuzma as it seems like he survives this blockbuster trade? But that's it for the video, take it easy guys.
A few inches later. A few moments later. One eternity later. Eventually. Meanwhile.